unique skill set, but it also invested him with unique authority to chase his quarry through all their territories with their cooperation and support. In the straight world, when you saw something, you said something, supposedly to the law. In the bent world, they called Joe. Joe had done the job they gave him. The result was 4 dead terrorists and 2 dead criminals. But Uncle Chen's nephew Derek, a talented young car thief, had gotten killed along the way when he and Joe had crossed paths with some redneck gun nuts at an illegal weapons market. At first, Uncle Chen had blamed Joe. Then it became clear that the bullet that killed Derek was fired from a weapon found on one of the gun nuts, a white supremacist named Jonesy Grabels. But due to the lack of witnesses and the general chaos that had reigned at the crime scene, his lawyer had gotten the charges reduced to involuntary manslaughter and bailed him out, at which point Jonesy promptly disappeared. Now one of Uncle Chen's sources had located him, and he'd sent his men down to tie up this loose end, with Joe very reluctantly along for the ride. Meanwhile, with the terrorists eliminated, life back in New York had returned to normal for Gio, for the other bosses, for the law, and for the entire blissfully ignorant civilian population of the city. But not for Joe. Not that he didn't try. He went home to his grandmother's apartment where she'd raised him after his parents, both criminals, had died young. He went back to work at the club. But when Joe picked up a gun again, his nightmares, flashbacks, and panic attacks returned with it, along with the craving for booze and dope to control them. And once that evil genie was out of the bottle, she wasn't going back without trouble. Chapter 2. The trouble started as soon as he returned to work at the club. Being a bouncer takes strength, skill, and fast reflexes, but most of all, it takes patience. Talking down drunks, extracting gropers, and defusing fights, all without scaring off the paying customers, has as much or more to do with a calm voice and easygoing demeanor as it does with fists. But now Joe was touchy, hungover at work from partying too late the night before, or buzzed by the time the club opened from starting too early. He was quick to lose his temper with assholes, or even worse, to be a bit of an asshole himself, running his mouth and aggravating the situation instead of soothing it. That's how the beef with the gangster rap mogul happened. A week or so after Joe got back to work, the gangster's star moneymaker, a little white rapper, came into the club. Though really, it began even earlier that evening at home when Yelena unexpectedly showed up with Joe's money. Yelena Noilaskya was an expert safecracker, cat burglar, ass-kicker, and most likely stone-cold killer, judging by the underworld tattoos that covered her body and that she had acquired back home in Russia. She and Joe had ended up together on the last job, working, fighting, and eventually sleeping side by side. The last time Joe saw Yelena, she'd been wounded. One of the terrorists' bullets had sliced her arm as she killed him to save Joe, while Joe raced straight toward a car, firing into the windshield. He was chasing his target, the terrorists' leader, Adrian Khan, through the building and up to the roof, which was where Joe left him with a single bullet through the forehead. Khan's wife and partner, Heather, had escaped, and so had Yelena, disappearing with the bag of dough into the Russian parts of Brooklyn. Joe didn't know Yelena's address. He wasn't even sure how she spelled her last name. But while it was hard to think of a law she hadn't broken at some point, she did live by a code, and 10 days after that battle, Joe and his grandmother Gladys were settling down to watch Jeopardy like she did 5 nights a week when the doorbell rang.
"Who's that?"
Gladys asked, checking her watch. 10 minutes to Alex. How do I know? Joe was washing dishes in the long, narrow kitchen. Probably one of your cronies. With a sigh, Gladys lowered her recliner and went to the small foyer to peer through the peephole.
"Looks more like one of yours,"
she called to him. And when Joe came out, Yelena was with her, looking sleek and healthy in expensive-looking dark blue jeans and a peasant top that let the edges of her ink show. She'd chopped her bangs up.